Hey, Happy Campers, Todd here, Great American. Today we're going through a technical walkthrough on our Sporttrek by Venture fifth wheel. This is going to cover pretty much all the floor plans. We're going to run you through the operation of all the items that would come with this particular brand of fifth wheel, a few tips and tricks along the way. If you want a deeper dive on some of the items that are on here, or tips and tricks, how-tos, all that stuff, you can find them on our Great American RV YouTube channel under the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe so you don't miss the next video. We're going to start in the front right here. So of course we have our fifth wheel hitch here in the front. Before we retract our landing gears here at the bottom, I want to do a pull test. You lock in, get your pin set, everything, put it in drive, give it a little yank, make sure everything's locked in, then go ahead and retract your landing gears. I've seen a lot of trucks, a lot of trailers dropped on truck beds. It's not really a pretty sight, right? On here we have our breakaway box, which is connected to our lanyard here. This lanyard needs to go to a tie down in the bed of the truck. We don't want to put it on our hitch itself, because if the hitch itself is what breaks and goes with the trailer, if something happens, this pin is not going to come out. So it's designed for this to go to a tie down in the truck. And what would happen is this pin pulls out, then 12 volts is sent to the brakes on our trailer to go ahead and stop the trailer. Now, if we don't have a good battery in our system, there's not going to be any 12 volts to send. So we want to make sure we have a good quality battery in there that's charged up. If we don't, then those brakes are not going to initiate when that safety system comes on. Always make sure that this pin is inserted all the way in here, never pull it out, do any of that stuff, just leave it alone, all right? Just make sure that pin's in there and you're good to go. Box right here is going to be our junction for all our 7-way wiring, some other stuff that goes into our trailer. Our 7-way wiring is right here. This will plug into your towing vehicle. That is what carries all of your turn signals, your running lights, all that kind of stuff. Brake controller, 12 volt auxiliary line, all that through here from your vehicle. Now there's not going to be any fuses from this plug to your lights on the trailer side of things. All those fuses are going to be under the hood of your towing vehicle, generally labeled trailer turn lamp, trailer stop light, stuff like that. You're also going to have a brake control wire that passes through here to your brakes on your trailer from your brake controller to help initiate the brakes, of course, when you're coming to a stop. And then lastly, you'll have a 12 volt line that comes off of your battery system to here. That will charge your battery while you're traveling down the road, because it'll pull off of the alternator of the towing vehicle. So that's good to know right there. While we talk about 12 volt batteries, of course we have our 12 volt battery in here. Generally it's going to be placed in that box. It's our shop battery. We just have it set up right there. That box will ventilate out any fumes or whatnot that we have. 12 volts is going to lead to this little cover right here. You're going to have some thermal resettable breakers in there. Those resettable breakers will automatically reset on their own. In the event that something is overamping on that system, those breakers will trip because they will get too hot, therefore the thermal, right? When they cool off, they'll reset and you can try it again. If it is a consistent issue, obviously we need to get that item checked out. If it is just every now and again, it might just have be under a slight strain, so on and so forth. But if it's a consistent problem, get it checked out. Either there's an issue with the item or an issue with the breaker. Down below it, you're going to have another manual reset breaker right here. This is generally going to be, this one is going to be for your inverter system, which is located up there. We'll talk about that in a second. But if it's tripped, it's going to be flipped out like this. This is reset and good to go. So that follows up to our inverter. What an inverter does is it changes 12 volts to 110 power to go ahead and run items like your TV, your coffee maker, plug phones in, stuff like that. It'll all work off of that. We'll talk real quick and show you another video about that Xantrax system and how it works. All right, so this is our Xantrax panel. We aren't plugged in right now. So if you want to invert, you just push that power button and it'll kick in. It'll start showing you your battery voltage and the load with watts under your battery system. If we hit the scroll button, it's going to show our AC output as well as our load output for our hertz. Our hertz should always be around 60 hertz, okay? So we can see now our inverter kicked in, 120 volts, 60 hertz. We can see in inverting mode here, it's pulling from the battery to our element here. We can see our little load percentage right here, so we're not pulling too much. If we hit our scroll button again, this is going to give us the firmware version of our actual inverter. Hit it again, this is a firmware version of our remote right here. Hit it again, it's going to bring us back to that first screen that was showing 0, 0 earlier. We can see our battery level is at 13.3, and then our load is 103 watts. As far as our lights right here, our top light, when that one is green, it is going to mean we are plugged into shore power. This second one that's green means we're inverting. This last one would be flashing red. That means that we have a fault in our system. We can scroll through, check what that fault is. I highly suggest you download the Bluetooth app, Xantrax app. Download it, connect it on here. The settings and everything are so much easier to set. It is much better, much friendlier than this remote panel right here. Coming back down over here, we have our battery disconnect. You have your green and your red. Your green, sorry, your red is down here. Your green is on, red is off. So we want our battery disconnect on anytime we are using our camper. Even if we're not plugged in, if we need light, stuff like that, that battery disconnect will have to be on because it'll be pulling from the battery. If we are plugged in, we want it on because our charging system will be charging this battery while it's plugged in. The only times we want to turn it off are if we are storing our unit unplugged. Storing meaning we're not using it, we're not worried about anything being on in there. We go ahead, turn it to that off position, and we leave it stored. That's going to conserve the battery power in our battery. If we are plugged in storing it, we want to leave it on. So once again, charging system will charge our battery. Also in here, you're going to find your leveling jacks. These are both our front landing gears. We'll notice on these, they are 12 volts. We have our plug right there on the backhand side. They do have an override on them. If you pull that little plug out right there, you can put a 3/8 drive ratchet in there or attachment and run a drill to go ahead and operate that jack manually if necessary. Anytime you do that, you want to go ahead and unplug that jack, that 12 volt system on there. That way something doesn't happen, it doesn't kick back on you, anything like that. Above that, we're going to see that we're prepped for our Lippert tire link system, which would be a monitoring system for our tires. It's 12 volt powered, so the wires are already ran. You would just need to buy the sensors and the monitor, which comes in a pack to be able to add that to your system. Nothing else to see in this front area right here, just more storage, right? We have our BAL leveling system. We'll go over information on that right now. All right, so before we get started on the touchscreen portion, a few things you need to know is whenever you disconnect, you want to extend out, of course, from you know, the height of the unit. These would be fully retracted. The height of the unit, pull this pin and extend this leg all the way down. If you don't do that and you just go straight into landing gear mode and drop it down, you're not going to have enough leg left to actually level out the unit. So make sure we drop this pin down and extend these out. And for our rear jacks, we want to do the same thing. These have about 4 holes, 3 to 4 holes that we extend these out. And then when we're done, our rear jacks, we definitely need to retract these up, pull this pin, retract these up, do the same thing for our front landing gears so they're not hanging down, catching anything whenever you hit the road. So 2 prime things. While we're here, we'll note you do have an override. So 5/16 socket goes into the bottom of there, and you can override this rear jack. Anytime you override these, you want to go ahead and unplug your 12 volts. That way there's no kickback or anything like that. Your override for your front landing gears will be in your front compartment. Let's go ahead and pop that open. All right, these are going to be different. So that's a 3/8 extension that you would stick in there, and then you can get a drill attachment for those and run those jacks up and down. Same thing, disconnect your 12 volts. Let's go over the operation of the keypad. All right, so on our keypad, generally you're going to have quick notes for auto level and unit attachment and stuff, which you can refer to. We're going to go through the whole kit and caboodle right here. So here at our touchscreen, you're going to turn it on. Now you want to make sure you have a good 12 volts, otherwise this system will not operate properly if you don't have a good 12 volts to run everything down. So let's say we just got to the campground, we're ready to disconnect. We're going to go into landing gear mode, and we're going to extend our jacks out, of course after we've dropped our legs down. Extend it out as much as necessary to disconnect from your truck. It's important that we go through that process in landing gear mode and not manual mode. That way it locks in the reconnect position for later whenever we hook up our camper when we're ready to leave. Okay, once we're done with our landing gear mode, we go into our auto level mode. So we go to our home screen, hit auto level, and hit OK. From this point, it's going to drop down those rear leveling jacks, and then it's going to level out our unit. Now, once we're done, everything is good to go. You can walk away from it, right? Our system will be off. We kick it back on, and then we're ready to reconnect to our trailer. So that's important because we go back into that auto mode, we can go into auto reconnect, press OK. Now our rear jacks are going to retract, and our front landing gear is going to extend and put us back in the same position we were in when we disconnected. So the height of our kingpin should line up with the hitch of our truck. That is only capable if we went through our landing gear manual mode here at the beginning, where we went into landing gear mode. It's essential that we went to that mode, otherwise it's not going to remember our reconnect position when we are ready to reconnect. That's pretty much all there is to auto level and our setup for connecting and reconnecting from our trailer. Now we do have a manual mode in here. The stabilizer mode is not a thing for the leveling system. This would be for regular stabilizers like on a travel trailer. Some fifth wheels may have it. We don't have stabilizers, we have levelers on this system. So stabilizer mode doesn't do anything. We would have to go into the manual mode up in the top right, and from here we can go ahead and level out our unit. If for whatever reason our auto level isn't working or we want to make some adjustments, we can extend right, left, front, and rear. If you're starting from scratch, you're generally going to want to do front and rear first, then right and left. You can go into retract and retract those items from there as well. Once again, stabilizer mode isn't going to do anything for this system because it is leveling. Now we'll talk about 0 point, which is basically your auto level point if your system is off and you need to redo it. Okay, start from scratch, you turn your system on, you hold down your battery button right here. That will bring up this keypad, 3, 7, 5, 9. That brings us into adjusting that auto level mode. From here you need a 3 or 4 foot level, and what we want to do is extend all of our jacks down, start in the front and then go to the rear, extend those jacks down till they touch the ground and actually lift the camper a little bit. From there we take our level, put it in our pass-through bay or the middle of our living room, anything like that, and we want to level that unit out from front to back. After we're done, we level it out from left to right, and we just use these front, rear, left, and right keys to do that. If we need to retract them, we hit retract and we can make those adjustments there. Once you're done, you just go to set, and then that 0 point is set for your auto level. From there you get out of it. It's good to go ahead and just turn the system off, turn it back on before you go into anything else. And from there you can go into, like I said before, go into the landing gear mode if you're disconnecting or whatever. If you're not disconnecting, just go straight into auto level, hit OK, and your system should go into leveling just like the 0 point that you've set. If you're in any of these items and you decide, oh wait, I don't want to do that, hit that stop button and then it'll allow you to do stuff again. Of course, like I said before, if we are wanting to go into auto level and stuff, you have to confirm and hit OK in order for it to start to initiate. All right, moving over to the side, we have our first propane tank right here on this side. You're going to have another one on the other side. Both of them are going to lead to our dual propane regulator. We can see our screw-ons right here, all rubber lines connected to that regulator. you need to keep an eye on that stuff. Heat and everything is going to get to it over the years. It's going to start to crack and deteriorate. You want to make sure that you change those lines out whenever they get in bad shape to make sure we don't have any propane leaks. Make sure you have a leak check done after you change that out, and it's a good idea to have a leak check done on it overall once a year for your propane system. So the way a dual propane regulator works is you turn both tanks on, and you have a selector valve there at the top. I'm gonna give them a flashlight so you can see a little bit better. Have that selector valve right here. So what we do is we choose if we want this tank or the other tank. So we have it pushed to the right side, which leads to this tank. This is now going to be our primary. If that tank has gas in it, that little dial up there is going to go to green and let you know that that tank has enough gas to work. So we use our propane items that we have, our furnace, our gas stove, whatever. If this primary tank that we have runs dry, of course that dial is going to go to red, and it's automatically going to start pulling off of our secondary tank without interrupting service. From there, if you notice that it's red, just come over here, slide this dial over to the other one. The other one becomes your primary. This is now your secondary. You can go ahead and get this tank refilled and stick it back in there. That's pretty much all there is to a dual propane regulator. Very easy to use. As we move over to our pass-through storage, not much to look at upon the roof line. You do have furnace ducts that run in here to keep this bay open. We granted ourselves access to this back panel right here. We'll talk about that in a second. But first, we're going to talk about our water bay right here. So in here, of course, we have a GFCI protected outlet. We're also going to have our quick connect with hot and cold. We have our 12-volt water pump switch right here that we can turn off and on to pull from our onboard storage. We have satellite and cable hookups right here. So satellite would be from a tripod or automatic satellite that you have. You hook it up here. Cable from the campground, hook it up right here. Let's talk about all of our fixtures right here. We're going to incorporate the water pump in on all that. So we're going to talk about, we'll talk about power tank fill first. So power tank fill is that onboard water storage. We would go ahead and turn it to this configuration right here. And that is for filling our onboard water storage tank. So that's water that comes with us. We use that whenever we decide to make stops and we need water, or if we're going to a campground that doesn't have water, have a city water connection wherever we're going. So we fill that tank. We can go ahead and hook our water hose up to our city water connection, turn it to this configuration, and turn the water on. That will begin to fill that tank. We can monitor it from our panel on the inside to see how much water we put in there. Now, we don't want to go ahead and just fill it up all the way if we're not going to use all that water. You're adding more weight to your unit than what you need. Just fill it up, halfway if you're only making a few stops or anything like that. If you're going on a camping trip and you don't have any water, fill it up all the way. When you are done camping or you decide that you don't need that water, drain it out. We don't want that water becoming stagnant inside that tank. We'll show you in a little while where that drain port is, but drain that water out of that system. That way it doesn't grow any mold, mildew, or anything inside that tank. So we filled our tank, we get to the campsite, we need to use that water. We're going to go to our dry camping configuration right here, and we're going to kick our water pump on. That's going to pull from that onboard tank and supply water to all of our fixtures and stuff on our unit. If we go to a campsite and we have a water connection, we hook our water hose up to this and to the bib there at the campsite, turn the water on, turn to this configuration right here, and now water will go to all of our fixtures. Winterization. Winterization is for when we are setting our unit up for really cold winter times and we're prepping our unit to keep everything from freezing. So we're going to put RV antifreeze in all of our water lines. So we would go to this configuration right here. We would hook a hose up to our city water connection right here, and the other end cut off and put into a jug of RV antifreeze, kick our water pump on, and that's going to siphon that RV antifreeze out of that bottle into our plumbing fixtures. There's several more steps to this, so go to your owner's manual to check that out, or watch our video on our Haps Helpful Hacks section of our YouTube channel. Once we're done with all that, so like I said, more information for winterization. If we want to siphon, which would be siphon to sanitize to the tank via the pump. So basically we're setting up to go to our fresh tank. the same way that we power filled, but we don't have a pressurized system to put that bleach and water configuration into our fresh tank, so we're using our water pump. So kind of like winterization, but we're putting it into our onboard storage tank. So you do a mixture of bleach and water, and then we would go ahead and hook the water hose up to this, run it into that tank, turn it to siphon, kick your water pump on, and then you're good to go. Here you're going to have your black tank flush. That's going to lead to our black tank sewage in order to flush out that tank. We'll go over more information on that when we get to the dump. Just know that that's where that is. So we talked about access to our pass-through bay right here. So all we did was pull some screws out, and we did that so we can show you what's back here. We have our 12-volt water pump right here that we spoke of. That pump is going to pull water from our freshwater storage tank, which is right behind it in this case. We see a little filter right there with a silver screen. Want to pull that cover off and clean it every so often to make sure that it doesn't have mold, mildew, grit, sand, all that kind of stuff in there, restricting the water flow on that water pump, and of course making it work harder and eventually restricting the flow of water out to our system. So clean that screen on a regular basis. Besides that, not much you need to do with your water pump. If you have city water hooked up, you don't have to have that water pump on. In fact, don't turn the water pump on. Leave it off. There's no reason for it to be on. Another thing we want to keep in mind on that water pump is anytime we use it, let's say we use a faucet or something like that, it's going to be on demand. That pump's not going to run all the time. It's going to be powered all the time, but it's not going to run all the time. So if you hear it vibrating and all your fixtures are off, we want to come check it out, because either the tank is empty or we have a leak in our system. Either way, you could lead to that tank being emptied out, and eventually that pump is going to run dry and eventually burn it up. So keeping an ear out on that system to make sure that it is you have water in it and you don't have any leaks. In here we can also see the back of our furnace right there. See the back of all our water fixtures. We're going to see our tankless water heater system that we're going to talk about in a minute. Just access to all these kind of things. It's a good idea to come check all these fixtures and stuff. Make sure you have no dripping water. Expansion and contraction, all these fixtures can lead to some leaks and stuff in there. We're also going to see on the back right there, that little box right there is for our BAL EXACTSLIDE system. We'll show you that once we get outside, but that's our slide control. Up here is going to be our BAL leveling system. That's our control for that. We're also going to see another controller back there around our furnace and stuff. All that is going to be for our panel on the inside for the controls for our entire unit. Okay, nothing that you necessarily need to go in and mess with, but just see, you know, for all our leveling jacks, we have fuses up here. If that stuff isn't working, just simply check all these little fuses in that system. On your BAL system, there is an override for that. There's a little red button in the bottom corner. So there's little tips and things, so it's a good idea to know where this stuff is. And generally in your fifth wheel for this venture, it's all going to be behind this panel right here. So we'll scoot on out and see what's next on the list. All right, so we'll move over. This little cover right here is a vent for our onboard water storage, just so air can exhaust out. We slide down here, we're gonna have our Suburban water heater system right here. Main things about this is to know that this is a technician on off switch. If that system isn't working, come out here and make sure that that switch is on. We have a little fuse right here we could check. It's an on-demand system. They do have a little tank back there, copper. Want to make sure we winterize that properly when winter time comes around so that tank doesn't explode from freezing water. Up here we're going to have our 50 amp connection. Put it in, turn it to the right, lock it in. Then you want to twist your little ring right here to make sure that this is tightened up and no risk of it falling out. Kids can't pull it out, anything like that. That would be live power on there if you have it plugged in, right? So we want to make sure that that's locked in well. Anytime you're setting up your camper, plug this in first, then plug that in. That way this isn't hot with power. Whenever you connect it, you're not going to arc with power, anything like that. And you can end up tearing up this plug after a while from that heat and arcing. So plug this in first, plug that in last. When we are unplugging our unit, unplug that in first, unplug this in second. Next, Suburban furnace, 12 volts to power, propane to heat the air. Same thing with our on-demand water heater, 12 volts to power, propane to heat the water. Down here, we're going to have our sewage dump. So we can see our black handle and our gray handle. That's going to incorporate with our sewage tank and our holding tank. Now the difference is our black handle is going to be for our black tank, which is sewage from our toilet. Gray is going to be anything from our sinks or our shower. Sometimes you may have two of them or two black tanks depending on your floor plan, but they're all going to be the same. Black tanks from the toilets, gray tanks from sinks or showers. So with that being said, we want to always make sure that our black tank is closed. So anytime we are camping, black tank closed until we are ready to dump. So let's go through the procedure of dumping. Our 4-inch connection right here is hooked up to either a spot there at the campsite or we're ready to dump at a dump station. If we are hooked up at a campsite and we want to leave our gray tank open all the time to just let it drain while we're camping so that tank doesn't fill up, generally with several people in there, that tank might fill up kind of fast. We can leave that open and let the water drain out. Our black tank, however, remember, always stays closed. The reason why is we have solids in there, toilet paper or sewage solids, stuff like that. We want water in that tank, otherwise those items are going to dry up, they're going to stick in our tank and you can't get that stuff cleaned out. So always leave this valve closed until we're ready to dump. When we're ready to dump, of course we have our hose hooked up, right? We pull that tank open and we let everything start to drain out. We go to our black tank flush over in our water bay right there, hook a water hose up. That's going to lead to a jet port there in that tank. That's going to spray that stuff over to our valve end over here and help drain it out. And it does a pretty good job. There are some few more steps or tips, I should say, pro tips that you can take in black tank flush, popular video that we have on our YouTube channel for Hap's Helpful Hacks. You may want to check that out. Beyond that, when you are satisfied with your flush, you want to close this valve off and add water to it. Whether you do it through your black tank flush or through your toilet, you want to add several gallons of water to that tank, then add your chemicals in there. That way it can help decompose whatever tidbits might still be in there. Another good little hack is on your last night, close that gray tank valve, and then whenever you are done flushing out your black tank, you have some residual water left in there from a couple showers, and that will help flush out your hose and clean it up for whenever you're ready to store it. Over to the left here, you're going to see our red and blue lines sticking out the bottom. That can be anywhere on your trailer, of course, but that is going to be our low point drains for winterization. That's what you want to look for whenever you go to winterize, to be able to drop that water out of our system. Back over here by our sewage dump, I know I'm jumping around, I apologize. We have that white valve right there. That is our drain port for our fresh tank. Like I said, you want to empty that out every now and again, and you don't want to just leave that standing water in there. All right, we'll shoot on down. We have our slide outs. Let's scoot back over to this one. Our front slide out is going to be that cable slide system. We can see the cable on the bottom and the top. Now this is our BAL slide, that board that we showed you in the front compartment right there. That is for the controls for that. Our rear slide outs, these are going to be a rack and pinion slide. This is the rear of the slide. We can see a cylinder right here. That's where our 12-volt motor is for this slide out. So it's going to run to a motor that's not accessible without dropping our underbelly, right? There is an override for these slide outs, okay? So we can see there's a post sticking out right here. You hook a 3/4 inch socket to that in your drill and you can run these slide outs in. Now that post right there is going to be for our slide on the opposite side. So this one is going to be on the opposite side as we go under our J-wrap for this side. We can see this is our ram for this slide out. The override is on the other side. This is our override for the side that we were just on. Same thing, just crank that in and that'll run our slide. We can see down below it, access to be able to drop our spare tire right there. Generally, if you have any water lines or anything on your slide out, you may have shut-off valves for them under that slide. For the PEX lines going to our hot and cold for our outdoor kitchen on this one. We can also see for this particular setup, you have to hook up a hose for drain on your outdoor kitchen for that sink right there. Beyond that, on our slide out, we're gonna see a little vent right there. It has 2 tabs on it. Those tabs are for storage. You wanna close them when you store your unit, keep any bugs, insects from building any nests. And what it goes to is our vent over our stovetop. So if you wanna ventilate out, you wanna make sure those tabs are open. Down here, we're gonna see our rear jacks. Those rear jacks do have a little drop down on them. You wanna extend those out, otherwise you might run out of length for that jack to extend and level out. Same thing for your front ones. Do have an override cap here at the bottom that's gonna be similar to our ones in the front to override that jack system in the event that something happened. You put a drill on there and crank it up. On the back of our unit, of course, we do have a ladder to gain access to our roof. That's important because if you're reading your owner's manual, it tells you need to get up there and check your sealants every 60 to 90 days. This includes sealants around all of our lights, our trims, our vents up top, all of that stuff. Here's the reason why. All that stuff is gonna degrade over time. I don't care if you keep it in a barn, under a cover, anything like that. That sealant is going to open up at some point and allow water to get into your unit. Owner's manual says this is customer maintenance. So you wanna look for cracking, peeling, deterioration, clean it, and reseal it on a regular basis to make sure we're not allowing water into our system. If we don't do that, manufacturers are not gonna participate in helping out with any water leaks if we're not taking care of our unit. So make sure we're going around and checking all that stuff, okay? Another thing we wanna do is get up there and check our rubber after trips. Make sure we didn't poke any holes or anything like that in it. If we did, seal it up. We wanna check our rubber and wash it at least twice a year to make sure we're keeping that rubber in good condition. Up there, we're also going to see our backup camera pre-wire for Furrion backup camera system. The power is already ran. Whenever we turn our running lights on our towing vehicle, it will power up that camera. Down here, we're gonna see our receiver hitch here on the back for towing behind us because we do have that 4-way flat. We can tow a trailer, tow a boat, tow whatever you want, right? GFCI outlet right here. We're gonna have outdoor kitchens on some. Most of our Venture fifth wheels are gonna come with a 110 powered fridge out here on the back. So keep in mind, anytime we plug our unit in, that fridge is gonna come on unless you turn the breaker off on the inside or unplug it. So what happens is, it gets cold in here, generally gonna have a little ice and stuff form up near the freezer part. Whenever we unplug our unit, this is all gonna defrost at some point. That water is gonna trickle down here and it's gonna get onto our cabinetry. Some of this stuff is wood. If it defrost, drips out of here, damages your wood, manufacturers are not going to take care of that repair. So make sure you are defrosting and storing this properly. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with some repairs that you're gonna have to pay for. Other thing back here, we're gonna have our gas grill. You're gonna have a hose connection on here. That hose is gonna come out and go into our port right here. A little quick connect, pull that rubber cap out. We have our quick connect to put in. This valve right here is gonna have to be in the off position in order to quick connect this. Once you put it in there, now you have to turn it in the on position for gas to actually flow out. This gas line will pull off your propane tanks in the front to go ahead and light your grill and cook. When we're ready to disconnect, same thing, this needs to go in the off position. We disconnect, put our little cap in there, and we're good to go. Our spare tire off to the right can be dropped down right here. We have that little knob, and you go ahead and crank it down. You got your spare tire ready to use whenever you need it. Gonna have awnings on here. This one is an overhead, no armed awning. It is just gonna go ahead and extend out, 12-volt powered. Now this one's gonna be a little bit different. Let's run it out and talk about it. All right, so this one's out, 12-volt powered, got lights on it. Push of a button, you run it out. Same thing for that one. Only difference with this one is we can pitch the awning, okay? So you're gonna end up with light dew, maybe a little light rain, condensation from your AC, all that stuff on top of it. When we have that, we have to pitch our awning, which is tilting it, okay? You can do this at either arm, but you only want to do one of them. You come over here, you grab this, pull it down. Now our awning is tilted and water can run off on the rear side. If you want it to run off the front instead, you can do that one instead, up to you. But anytime heavy rain comes in, high wind, stuff like that, roll this awning in. You do not want to take the chance of dealing with having to clean this up. You get too much water up there, this thing will collapse. High winds, it's gonna take it with it. You're leaving your camper for an extended period of time, roll that awning in. Whenever you're ready to do that, and go ahead and just push up. Really easy to do. Roll your awning in and you're good to go. Front compartment right here, not much to look at from this side, just more storage. You're gonna have your other propane tank here in the front side right here. That will lead over to our dual propane regulator on the other side. Before we enter the inside of our unit, of course, we have our entry door and our steps. So whenever you get to the campsite, you're gonna go ahead and level out your unit. You're gonna drop down your steps. So to store them, lift them, lock them in, shut your door, you're good to go. When we're ready to pull them out, after we've set up our unit, undo our latch, drop them down. Now we have to level our steps. We want to go over here, see this little latch? That latch is on both sides. Push in on this latch and we can extend or retract our legs. What we're looking for is a nice flush threshold right here. That way our door doesn't get caught up on it and will latch properly. After we've done that, we should be good to go, but we also want to make sure we don't have any contact between this frame and this frame causing any damage. So those are two things that you need to look out for when leveling out your steps. The other thing is, whenever you are putting your steps in and out, make sure this door is all the way open. Otherwise, that bracket right there is going to catch our screen defender and tear it up. Let's go check out the operation and everything on the inside. All right, when you walk into the inside of the unit, somewhere near that entry door, you're going to find your control panel right here for all of your items. Up top, we're going to see our battery, fresh, black, and gray tank meter here at the top. When we push on those buttons, it's going to tell you what the level of all those items are. You're also going to have a Bluetooth pair button. If you download the app for the system, you can go ahead and actually operate or monitor some of these items from your phone. So you want to go ahead and do that. It makes life a little bit easier and convenient. Have our water pump switch right here, so we can turn that off and on from here. We're also going to have tank heaters that are going to lead to these tanks and heat them up in cold weather. You just kick that button on and that will heat those tanks, prevent them from freezing up. Down here you have all of your lights, cap lights, jack lights, awning lights, all that stuff turn off and on here. You're also going to have a couple switches throughout the unit to turn on some of the other lights. Down here you're going to have your slide operation and your awning operation. To choose which one you want to use, just go ahead and click through the selection there. Then you have your in and out option right there to be able to run it. Really simple system, all 12 volts. We'll show you here shortly where the 12 volt panel is in the event that something's not working where you want to go. Have your Go Power solar controller right here. That is going to transfer solar power into charging power for your battery system. Not much to worry about here. Basically a monitoring system. It's going to do its thing. Now if you get real complex with putting lithium batteries and stuff in there, you're going to want to change a few settings on here. I'll leave that to the owner's manual to tell you how to do that, because most often people are just going to have the standard liquid batteries in there. As we move in here, we have our light switch. All right, we have a spare bunk right here. That bunk has access to be able to put a washer dryer. This is what you would see if you are prepped for that washer dryer, is you're hot and you're cold. And then you're also going to have your plumbing right there to drain that system out. And of course a 110 outlet to power it. Not much else to see in that room. I'm going to move on to our kitchen area. Kitchen in this one is going to have a Suburban refrigerator, 12 volt powered. We're going to go over the operation of that right now. All right, so we're going to have our refrigerator. Now it may be locked. So as long as it is on, you'll be able to control these features on here. If you want to turn it on and it's off, you hold down right here where it says power. You hold it down for 3 seconds and you can turn the system off, or you can go ahead and turn it back on by doing the same thing. Okay, so we're on. If we want to check our zones or change temperature on our zones, we have our freezer down there at the bottom. We can hold down that temperature button and change that temperature. If we want to do the crisper drawer, we hit it again, go to that crisper drawer, we can change our temperature there. We want to do the refrigerator box, we click our zone button again, and then we can change temperature on that refrigerator box. Our two modes are normal mode and night mode. The difference in that is normal mode is going to go ahead and refrigerate your items like normal. Night mode is going to figure that you're not going to go in and out of this fridge much, so it's going to lower the work of the compressor, and this is to reserve 12-volt power on your system, because this is a 12-volt fridge. It's set up for if you're dry camping, you don't have a 110 source anywhere, so that battery is depleting, running off of with the fridge running off of it. So it's to conserve that energy on the 12-volt system by putting in a night mode. If we want to change from Fahrenheit to Celsius, we just hit down there at the bottom and you'll see your change. Now you have a couple of alarms that might pop up. You have a OV-ALM, which is over voltage, and then you have a UV, which is under voltage. So if your battery power spikes, then you are over voltage. If your battery power is too low, then you'll get that under voltage alarm. If you go to your owner's manual, you do have some error codes, E1 through E9. You can go ahead and see most of them there. Go ahead and hold that still for a second. Sensor failures, you have the under and over voltage alarms that we talked about, fan failures, so on and so forth. So you have that to reference. Not going to reference how to repair most of that stuff because that would end up having to come from Suburban, generally under warranty. We talked about our voltages. We have normal voltage anywhere between 10.9 and 15 volts. Under voltage would be anything under 10.9, over would be 15. Another point to make on our freezer portion of our refrigerator, and our refrigerator as well, is that anytime we go to store our unit, of course we're going to have, generally have ice in here or frozen products. Ice is going to accumulate, so we want to defrost this fridge when we turn it off and make sure we get all water, ice, liquids, all that stuff out of here, and wipe down our refrigerator portion real quick, because we're going to generally have some condensation and stuff. That's going to reduce the risk of mold and mildew on here, but we're also going to reduce the risk of water leaking out of here onto our wood components around there, damaging the wood. Manufacturers aren't going to participate in that kind of repair, so we want to make sure that we store our unit properly. That is considered owner's maintenance. Shifting over to our residential stovetop, gas powered of course. You are going to have some 12 volts over here to operate this system. Gas to heat everything up. Of course, you're going to have 12 volts to operate this system. For your stovetop portion, before we go into this, this is where you want to go to bleed air out of your system. Now, bleeding air out of the system generally needs to happen whenever you've stored your unit. Whenever you stored it, you've turned your tanks off. That propane that's pressurized in the line is going to dissipate. You're going to end up with air. Or you ran out of gas, now you have air on the line. So you put new tanks in, or you just pulled it out of storage, you turn those two new tanks on. You want to come over here to the stovetop and bleed the air out. And you do that simply by lighting your burner. So this one, we turn it to high, push it in, and it's going to ignite. We don't have any gas in this system, so it's not going to ignite. But this may take, 30 to 60 seconds, depending on where your stovetop is located on your propane line. But it's the fastest way to get air out of the system. Once gas hits that burner, it's going to start lighting. Run it for another 30 seconds till you have a nice blue flame around that ring, and you more than likely got all the air out of your system. You want to do this before you go operate things like your furnace or your water heater, stuff like that, because those will actually go into a fault for having air in the system, whereas this one you can manually control lighting that oven top. Down here, we are going to have our actual oven right here. So have a little fan in there. That fan can be turned off and on with that switch. We have our burner down here at the bottom. Now this one is going to be a little bit harder, right? So we have our turn right here. We have our oven, our flame icon right there. We push down and we can hear it trying to ignite in there, but that burner's down at the bottom, so we can't necessarily see it. But pull that cover off, we'd see our burner, right? And let's see if we can initiate. Can't really see the igniter in there, but if we want to see it, we're going to have a flame pop up over there where it ignites. Once that flame is lit, we need to hold it down for another 20 or 30 seconds for that pilot to heat up the thermocouple and recognize that, hey, I'm lit. Once we've done that, then we can go ahead and turn our temperature, and then this burner is going to go ahead and initiate and light up and start heating up the oven. That's a little complicated for this oven, right? I get it, but generally you're only going to have to do that right after you bleed the air out of your system. Just because the air is bled out of the stove does not mean that the air is bled out of the oven. that one is going to take a little bit longer. But once you bled the air out, every time a lighten it after that is going to be good until, of course, you store it or you run out of gas again, right? All we did to pull that cover off, stick it back in, just lift up right here, and we can gain access to that area. So pretty simple system to use. Just get a little bit, getting used to, right? Down at the bottom here, of course, we're going to have that vent that we talked about outside. We want to make sure those tabs are open. Standard 110 microwave right here. Moving around, recliners, sofa, all your standard stuff. TV system right here. Now on your TV system, standard TV system right here, sound bar, all that kind of stuff, and then you're going to have your 110 fireplace right here. So that 110 fireplace is going to put out electric heat instead of gas heat. So if you want electric instead of gas, this is a place to go. So to operate it, you do have a remote, but the buttons are going to be pretty well the same. So we'll just go over it here. So little button right here with the little flames, that's going to change your decor lighting right there. You have a little wiggly line right here, that's going to turn your heat on. We hit the two arrows below it, that will change our heat. So we have the on option, or we have 64 to 84 degrees that we can set it at before it shuts off. We have a timer right here off to the side. We can do 8 hours, we can do 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour, 8 hours, whatever we want right there. Or we can just leave our lights on and not run the heat at all. We can turn it off and on right there. Pretty simple system to use. Somewhere in your unit, you're going to have a COLP detector, okay? That is going to be hardwired into our 12-volt system, and it will alert you of any CO or propane that gets into your unit. Little green light right there lets you know it's powered on. Little test button, test the buzzer on it. These are good for 5 years. We can see our expiration date on this one. Some of them are stamped on the back. After 5 years, you need to replace that, and it is a good idea to test that on a regular basis before you go camping to make sure it's working. Beyond that, you're going to have a smoke detector somewhere in your unit. This one's probably going to be in the front, yeah, hallway right there. 9-volt battery to power that up. Check out when daylight savings and stuff comes around. You want to check that out and make sure it is working properly and change that battery out. Have our MaxxAir vent control right here, our remote. Turn it off and on. That is going to be for our MaxxAir vent here in the living room area. All right, pretty simple to use. If we just want to initiate it, we can hit that fan off and on button right here. It will automatically kick our fan on and open our vent, hit it off, and that will close our vent and turn it on. Okay, beyond that, we can adjust our vent, open and close it. We can go ahead and increase or decrease our fan speed right here, or we can put it on auto and it can work off of our room temperature. Just different options right there that we can use for that system. Shut it off. And now that system will close. Next, we'll go over our Coleman Mach thermostat right there for our AC system. This will control our heating and our cooling for our living room area. We have our AC system right there with a filter on it. Want to check that filter every so often and make sure we're not restricting airflow to our AC so it can work efficiently. We're going to see our air ducts through our ceiling right there that will carry all of our cool air. When we talk about our furnace, the furnace is going to come out of our vents there on the floor line. Hot air does not come out of the AC on these unless you have a heat pump. All the hot air is going to come out the bottom, and you're only going to have heating on your living room thermostat. Your bedroom thermostat is generally just going to have cool air. So let's go over that right now. All right, this is our thermostat for our AC system. When we click that button once, it'll give us the option for mode. Our first mode is cool. We hit that button again, and then we can choose between high or low auto or high and low all the time. So high and low all the time will keep that fan running constantly, even though that compressor is not on. Auto will shut that fan off. whenever our compressor is turned off. Once we go ahead and initiate those two items, our AC will kick on and we can choose our desired temperature by turning that knob right there. And the larger number on that screen is going to be our room temperature. So here we're set at 63 and our actual temperature is 83. Cool on is going to show you that that system is initiating and that system will kick on. Our next option on there, if we hit that button twice again, is heat. When we go ahead and click it right there, it will bring on the heat, show our room temperature as well as our set to temperature. Our heat is only going to come out of the lower areas. It's not going to come out of that rooftop AC. If you have air blowing out of that rooftop area, then we want to make sure that we don't have the fan on high or low on that cool option. So we would go back to our cool and we would check right here and make sure it's on auto. Our last option on here is cool and heat. In this case, we can go ahead and do the same thing, choose our fan options, just have a set temp in between the furnace and the AC. It will keep that temperature set at that 72-degree mark. Now, in order to turn that system completely off, click it twice again and we can go to off. Jumping over to our bathroom right here, flip our light on. We have our Suburban on-demand water heater right here. Let's go over information on that right now. For our Suburban tankless water heater system, you can just turn it off and on by hitting that power button right there, obviously. And we can set our temperature with our arrows right here to whatever our desired heated temp is. Now this system, not much to it besides those buttons, and then of course we can change from Celsius to Fahrenheit. But when you turn your water on, the system's going to run and there's nothing else to do with it. It's not going to give you any other notifications unless there is an error in the system. Turn your water on, let it run, and it will begin to heat up to that set temperature. All right, we're also going to have a fan in here. Suggested to use that during showers to reduce heat and humidity in here. Speaking of showers, you got one. Glass door, put your travel latch on so that thing doesn't shatter. Standard hot and cold in your shower. And of course we're going to have our toilet. So let's talk about our toilet. We talked about it outside. That's going to lead to our black tank. We are only going to put two things in there as far as sewage is concerned. Number one and number two. Number one being liquids. Number two being solids. Then we're also going to put RV toilet paper only in there. Nothing else. And then we're also going to add chemicals to help decompose that stuff. Do not put anything other than toilet paper in there. Throw it in the trash. Do not put anything other than sewage and stuff in there. Throw it in the trash. Reason being is that stuff can get caught up in your pipes and cause some clogging issues that you don't want to have to pay for, much less deal with. So let's go over the procedure for flushing. If we're doing number one, it's just liquids, hit your pedal, send it down the drain. If we're doing number two, which would be solids, we want to barely push this pedal down right here to where our ball valve at the bottom doesn't actually open up, but water is being let in. We want to fill that bowl 1/2 to 3/4 of the way, then flush it. That way we have enough water in that bowl to actually flush those solids down and send it all the way down to that tank, and no risk of it getting clogged up. Besides that, don't put anything you're not supposed to in there, and it will save you a lot of money. Over here in our bathroom, you're going to end up finding our GFCI outlet. So this is the one that's going to protect all your outlets in your kitchen, your outside, stuff like that, all those GFCI protected outlets and wet locations. If it's tripped, that button, that reset button is going to be raised and the green light's going to be off. And so to reset it, just come over there, hit that reset button. But what trips this? Well, if those outlets get wet, or you have too many griddles, coffee makers, stuff like that plugged into it, it will overamp it, and either way it's going to trip. Now if you automatically reset it and if you go to reset it and it automatically trips right off the back, you need to go test the outlets and check, see if they're wet, or if you have too much stuff plugged into them, in which case unplug those items, reset it, and see if that doesn't fix your problem. Plug those items back in one at a time. In our hallway right next to our bathroom, we do have all of our breakers right here all labeled, and then of course we're going to have our 12-volt fusers right here all labeled as well. So anything to do with like our lights for all of our stuff, bathrooms, living room and everything, that's generally going to be 12 volts. We want to come here for all those fuses, and then we also have our 110 breakers for our fireplace, ACs, all that stuff. Come here, see if any breakers are tripped, if any of those items are a problem. If none of these breakers are tripped and you're dealing with a 110 issue, check the power pole that you're plugged into. They're going to have a breaker on that as well. Now, one thing to mention, this one has this little grid down here at the bottom. You're going to hear a little fan running. That is your converter system. Remember we talked about that. Changes 110 to 12 volts to charge your battery. So it's normal to hear a little fan running in there. No problems with that. As long as you're plugged in, you'll generally hear that fan. Going into our bedroom, not a whole lot to go on in here. We have our slide out button for our Thru slide on this one. Then we also have our other Coleman Mach AC control, our thermostat right there. Once again, that one's just going to be cool air. Pretty much everything else in here is going to be standard. Have another fireplace. You're going to have storage under your bed. The main thing that we need to touch on in here is our antenna booster and our 4G LTE option right there. So for our antenna booster, generally going to be found in our bedroom, sometimes in our living room behind the TV, but we have that little button on there. Button turns on and off a green light. That green light indicates that your 12 volt antenna boost is on, which if you're searching for air channels on your TV, that is going to help boost that signal and pick up more channels in your area. If you want to scan for cable, you want to make sure that light is off. Otherwise, it's going to scramble the channels coming in from the campground. So off for cable, on for antenna. Other thing we're going to have in here is our 4G LTE Wi-Fi gateway option right here. Basically, you are pre-wired for that gateway system, so you have power ran here. If you want to purchase the gateway, you can. Little SIM card pops in there. You can have Wi-Fi with you wherever you go. That wraps up everything on our Sporttrek fifth wheel. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it taught you a little something, refreshed your memory on how these operate if you didn't get a good walkthrough. If you got any questions, leave it in the comments. If you want to check out a Sporttrek fifth wheel, go to greatamericanrv.com. In our hallway right next to our bathroom, we do have all of our breakers right here, all labeled. And then of course we're going to have our 12 volt fusers right here, all labeled as well. So anything to do with like our lights for all of our stuff, bathrooms, living room and everything, that's generally going to be 12 volts. We want to come here for all those fuses. And then we also have our 110 breakers for our fireplace, ACs, all that stuff. Come here, see if any breakers are tripped, if any of those items are a problem. If none of these breakers are tripped and you're dealing with a 110 issue, check the power pole that you're plugged into. They're going to have a breaker on that as well. Now, one thing to mention, this one has this little grid down here at the bottom. You're going to hear a little fan running. That is your converter system. Remember we talked about that. Changes 110 to 12 volts to charge your battery. So it's normal to hear a little fan running in there. No problems with that. As long as you're plugged in, you'll generally hear that fan.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV SuperStores, where we bring the how-to you.